Israel at war continues to be a focus for state lawmakers. 4 bills actually are already filed in the House and Senate in support. One state senator is just back from an unannounced trip there to tour scenes of the terrorists, what they did, the atrocities. State Senator Jason Pizzo documented some of what he experienced on social media. Senator Pizzo, Democrat, repping coastal Broward and Northeast Dade, right there with us today. Good morning, Jason Pizzo. Great to have you.
Morning, Lana.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
So I'm interested to hear how did this trip come about? Was this a personal trip? Was this a professional trip? And how did you go to the places you went?
I think it's personal in nature, but I think it has a resonating effect publicly and with a lot of my colleagues that I heard from as soon as I announced that I had left. A dear friend of mine, Leslie, who's been documenting a program called The Last Ones of Holocaust Survivors, is actually meeting with a film crew over there to talk to some of the families that have been displaced from their kibbutzes, many of whom of their fellow neighbors in the kibbutz who were killed, slaughtered, children, women, and men. And I just felt the need to be there. It's the old term actually comes out of Russian origin, but it's trust but verify. And we were shown stuff in the Senate. The Consul General of Israel came to Tallahassee to show us video and show us data and information. And I think a lot of my colleagues had the yearning and desire to go over there. And when the opportunity arose, I took it.
And as we're talking, I'm not sure you can see, we are looking at some of the images and the videos and the photographs that you posted from your touring on your own social media. Did anything that you saw or experienced change any of the perspectives that you had prior to?
So I believe to be incredibly intellectually honest and unbiased in this. Certainly my district has a large Jewish population. I think I have the most synagogues and schools, numbering 63 or 64. But I'm never quick to cast judgment. This sort of October 7th ran concurrent with a number of over a dozen schools and universities, colleges that I toured over the state of Florida, and hearing some of the rhetoric from students was very alarming, based on whatever information source they had. And so, I guess my kids' generation doesn't do as much of a deep dive into history, I don't think. And so I went there with as much of an open mind as possible. I had seen sort of one side, I guess you could say. But then being there and literally walking through the kibbutz to Be'eri, Kifusim, the very first night that we were there, and just walking down the street the other day in Tel Aviv and having a woman grab me to take cover in a stairwell because rockets were being fired overhead. And I hear the rhetoric at home from all generations and all different types. And when I hear the term Free Palestine, the question begs itself, who's going to free them? And without this interaction, I don't see a path forward.
You kind of started to answer one of the questions I had, because I know you made a very concerted effort, not having nothing to do with this, about doing a college tour to talk to young voters. And I guess your college tour and your visits to campuses around the state really does coincide with what's going on campuses. To your point, with rhetoric being repeated and people who don't really know the history and context, but know headlines and come probably from a very authentic place of social justice. People want to be social justice warriors. So I wonder, when those two things, now that you're on the forefront of both of those things, what's the plan going forward?
So I'm having a really difficult time trying to reconcile now, having been there. I'm having a very difficult time, Glenna, very candidly, trying to reconcile the idea of some otherwise amazing women's rights, human rights groups and organizations we have here domestically, who have been absolutely mum and have said not a word about places that I saw, about verified tragedies of women being raped, of babies being put in ovens, of just absolute slaughter. The Israelis dropped 1.9 million flyers from the air, made 400,000 plus text messages and 29,000 phone calls. We haven't seen that kind of sort of effort to warn beforehand preemptively since Churchill did it in Hamburg in World War II. That resulted in the death of 70,000 still. So I talked to Rachel Goldberg. Her son Hirsch Goldberg Poland is 23 years old. His left arm was blown off. We've seen it in videos, and was still thrown in the back of a pickup truck and taken. And speaking to his mother, she said, from the president on down, people have been wonderful. When I was with my friend Leslie, she was there a few weeks ago, and Rachel said, Leslie, I said, talk to your legislators. I didn't know that you were actually going to bring one. But she said some of the very prominent personalities, non-elected officials, and some elected officials very high up have been mum because they just don't want to engage because sometimes the polling doesn't look good. I guess people were honest with her enough. The path forward, I don't know. Again, I don't know where women's rights and human rights groups are in this position when rape was an instrument and tool. Um, and this information is available. So I have deep concerns about how this is exasperating, I think, underlying divisiveness and polarization that we already have. Um, I, I, I'm concerned. I'm concerned for my kids.
You will be going back to session next month. We saw a special session just last month, and there were you and your colleagues in the Senate and in the House in Tallahassee passed a slate of a couple of bills in support of Israel, and there are more filed to come. But on the House side, one of your colleagues in the House from Jacksonville had gotten up to make an amendment to call for a ceasefire, and was very emotional about talking about the babies dying, tens of thousands of people and civilians caught in this maelstrom, and she had backs turned toward her. I wonder how, when this comes up in January among the legislators in Tallahassee, what do you expect will be the tone and tenor when there are people who are really raising alarms about the toll on civilians that this war is taking?
Glenn, I look at it from this perspective. Hamas was chosen as leadership, either if you want to believe democratically, in which case they should choose somebody else, or these people are kept under the thumb of a terrorist organization and they need the help of others to free them. So it's either or. If you wish for casualties not to occur, for death not to continue to occur, there are two options. In the United States, we have incredibly polarized and divisive rhetoric back and forth between both parties, but every 4 years we get to choose somebody else if that's the case. So if this was by their own choosing and somewhat of a republic or a democracy to choose Hamas, well, then they have what they have. And if it's not, they certainly need the help of some international body to free them from this control of Hamas. So either way, even for those who are advocates for peace, who are advocates for a ceasefire, for this all to end, that's all very well and good. I'd like to have the 8 remaining American hostages returned. I'd like to have a proof of life. I'd like for everyone to remember that 29 Americans were killed. And I'd like everyone to realize that a ceasefire just allows one side to embolden themselves to entrench and to rebuild and continue to cause terror.
Very grateful that you are having this very difficult conversation with us, Jason Pizzo. Thanks for being with us. Safe travels home, and happy holidays to you.
Thank you, Glenna.